Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, 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 Namanda. Shi Shin Namo Shi Shin Shi Shin Please join me in reciting the Golden Chain too. I'm a link in the Buddha's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I must keep my link bright and strong. I will try to be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will try to think pure and beautiful thoughts, to say pure and beautiful words, and to do pure and beautiful deeds, knowing that on what I do now depends not only my happiness or unhappiness, but also that of others. May every link in the Buddha's golden chain of love become bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, 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 Namanda. We'll now chant Sanbutsuge. Ogen Yigi Ijinu 一門て有脈樹木如来有限朝世無林小学大音コルジポ開門精進三昧知恵意徳無量中小慶人大前年小仏法開具人人の不合外大無明欲ぬ世尊用無人のしし人徳無量空君広大知恵人妙光明一層神道大仙願が差分在小法華道生じ未不下脱不正上位開任精進行税三昧知恵以上五世特分不行志願一切空空一切大安決し有分百千億万無量大小中如五弱用一切死と小分不尿具道検証不逆非尿五者小分世界部不影無種節の光明師匠変師小国尿税精進偉人南明両が差分国土第一具種奇妙道場超絶国如内音二無闘争が東愛民道達二歳自法来小新年少女意図が国慶楽安穏公文信用税が新書本願の日力少小欲実法生存知恵無下上量子孫知が信用軽量心死食毒中が行精進忍術不軽ナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブ願にしくどく平等正祭道 Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandav, 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 Namandav. Good morning, and thank you for coming to this morning's Dharma family service for the Buddhist Temple of Marin. I'd like to start our next portion of this service by giving my Dharma message for today. And so I'd like to share my screen with you. If you please join me in Kansho, I'd like to read the words of Shinran Shonin, our founder. In people who have long heard the Buddha's name and said Nambutsu, surely there are signs of rejecting evil in this world and signs of their desire to cast off the evil in themselves. When people first begin to hear the Buddha's vow, they wonder, having thoroughly become aware of the karmic evil in their hearts and minds, how will they ever attain birth as they are? To such people, we teach that since we are possessed of blind passions, the Buddha receives us without judging whether our hearts are good or bad. When, upon hearing this, a person's trust in the Buddha has grown deep, they come to abhor such a self and to lament continued existence in birth and death. And such a person then joyfully says the name of Amida Buddha, deeply entrusting themselves to the vow. That people seek to stop doing wrong as their heart moves them, although earlier they gave thought to such things and committed them as their minds dictated, is surely a sign of having rejected this world. Moreover, since Shinjin, or the heart of entrusting, that inspires for attainment of birth, arises through the encouragement of Shakyamuni and Amida, once the true and real mind is made to arise in us, how can we remain as we were, possessed of blind passions? Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandav, 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 Namandav. The passage I shared for today's Gosandai comes from the 20th letter in our founder Shinran Shonin's collection of letters called the Matosho, or Lamp for the Latter Ages. This collection of letters gives us some insight into who Shinran was as a teacher and how he viewed his fellow Pure Land Buddhists, which was generally with a great deal of respect and in a mind that strove for equality. Of all the letters in the Matosho, this one means the most to me. And I feel like it has a lot of advice for us as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists. This particular letter is Shinran's attempt to address then contemporary teachings that other Pure Land Buddhists had been spreading at the time regarding antinomianism, or the idea that one can be evil as one wishes. It doesn't matter, because Amida Buddha will deliver the person to the Pure Land to become Buddha themselves when they die. Some people even thought that the more evil or harm that they did to themselves and others, then the more likely it was that they would be recipients of Amida's salvific power. Though I haven't been a minister for a very long time, I've been going to the temple since 2014. And during all of that time, I've learned a lot from our sanghas and from my own self-reflection about what we might often struggle with as Buddhists in the US. A lot of us want some sort of rules or guidelines to follow in order to be a good Buddhist, or at least a good person. However, Jodo Shinshu teachings don't really give us that list. Our goal in life isn't to be good or evil. It's to become our authentic selves and to rely on Buddha and the teachings for guidance as we inevitably grow and change in our lives. This is an important aspect of Shinjin, or the entrusting heart, which is an awakening experience that we go through in our tradition. So an authentic experience of religious or spiritual awakening in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism is deeply subjective and personal. If you have the collected works of Shinran, I highly encourage you to read this letter, Matosho 20. Though the passage I shared for our Gosandai was a bit long, the letter is at least 4 times that length. And it has a lot of helpful information and invaluable guidance for us as Buddhists. This guidance speaks to a question that always pops up in my mind for myself personally. And it's a question that I've heard countless times at temple, during our discussions, in group meetings and study sessions, and at bazaar and so many other events that I've attended. The question is, put vaguely, how do I deal with people who are jerks? Usually that question is asked in the context of folks who have dismissive or harmful views on basic human rights, equality, state violence, and other issues that I would generally agree with the person who was asking the questions, which was sometimes myself. And that question is, how do I deal with these jerks? I think my first response to that question, ideally at least, is, well, sometimes I'm a jerk. Everyone's life is full of jerks, and I'm bound to be someone else's jerk at some point in time. That helps me to put things a bit into perspective. However, I think it's also important for us to validate that sometimes we do have insight into what is wrong, what's evil or bad in the world. There's a line, when crossed, that makes everything that we do evil. Our own subjectivity can sometimes blind us to what that evil looks like, and at other times, it can make the visage of evil quite clear. It's really important for us to consider this thought deeply. I can't tell you exactly how to do that, and no teacher should probably tell you exactly how to, but I hope that some of our good teachers might be able to give us a tip or two that can help to guide us in our own navigation of how to be in the world. What's good, what's helpful, what's compassionate, and what's hateful, harmful, and evil is up to us to figure out for ourselves. We can probably come to agree on some of those definitions, but there will always be people out there who challenge those values. Going back to Shinran and his letter, he was trying to provide some insight on the jerk situation during his lifetime in Japan. This letter is trying to encourage other Pure Land Buddhists of his time that their encounter with Buddha and Dharma on this shared journey is transformative and opens our eyes to the evil in the world. He says, in people who have long heard the Buddha's name and said Nembutsu, surely there are signs of rejecting evil in this world and signs of their desire to cast off the evil in themselves. It takes a lot of time and effort to be able to recognize evil, to see the problems in our world, especially if we're somehow accustomed to them, accepting them as just how things are. According to Shinran, as we grow and learn in our lives as Buddhists, we reach a point of awakening to the fact that our world is riddled with problems and that we don't want to contribute to that suffering for ourselves or for others anymore. This realization of seeing the world honestly is part of our awakening experience of Shinjin, which is the heart of entrusting oneself to Buddha. Shinjin is a deeply personal experience, but we also awaken in community, in our Sangha. And here's where it gets a little bit tricky, because though we're all fellow travelers, we live in a very big world full of different folks. And I think here is where we might get some guidance on dealing with difficult people from Shinran. After the passage I shared from our Gosandai today, Shinran goes on to say that there are reports of wrongdoing, even of some among you. I've heard that their slandering of the master holding their true teachers in contempt and belittling their fellow practitioners, all of which is deeply saddening. They are already guilty of slandering the Dharma and committing the 5 grave offenses. Do not associate with them. The treatise on the Pure Land states that such thoughts arise because they fail to entrust themselves to the Buddha Dharma. Moreover, in explaining the sincere mind, it teaches that one should keep a respectful distance and not become familiar with those who give themselves to doing such wrongdoing. He then goes on to compel other Pure Land Buddhists to be mindful, to find meaningful bonds in community with others who pursue the Dharma in like-minded community. Shinran justifies this logic by saying that we, limited human beings, can't really change the minds of other beings to bring them to enlightenment. Only a Buddha can do that, and so it's better for us to strive for Buddhahood together in community than to try to change the minds of others. There's a great deal of wisdom in this last part of Shinran's letter because it gives us a lot of insight into how we might deal with difficult people or jerks in our lives. For my own part, I've had plenty of individuals and even groups in my lives who, though I care for them deeply, the very essence of our moral and ethical values differ greatly. As such, I'd like to change their viewpoint, and undoubtedly, they'd like to change mine too. I've started to accept that no matter what I say or do, we're likely to cling to our own beliefs until we die. Yep. Sometimes I think of these folks as jerks, or even worse. So I've had to learn to accept that we are just in different places in life, and we can't really compromise. I put distance and boundaries between myself and other people for my own safety and for my mental health, because some of these differences are not mere opinions about favorite colors or food or movies, but they're about personal value of either myself or others, and even groups of people. These differences are about self-respect and fundamental rights. Our own safety and integrity are important, whether it's in our everyday lives, our religious pursuits, or professional goals. When we waste time and energy and our emotional efforts straining to change other people, then we can't really take care of ourselves or the communities that we love, like our Sangha, our chosen family, and our dear friends. I don't think that any of this means that we don't care for or even love the folks we can't get along with or those jerks in our lives. It's just that we're acknowledging that we also care for ourselves and the communities with whom we share our values. For now, I'm just talking about interpersonal experiences and not necessarily political or social justice movements that strive for equity and reimagining systems of violence, oppression, and discrimination. That's a very different Dharma talk. The point that I am, and I think Shinran too is trying to make, is that we're all stuck in our own subjective experiences. This isn't necessarily a good or bad thing, but it does limit how we can really do what we can really do to help ourselves and others. In my view, Shinran's answer to the question of how do we deal with jerks in our lives is that we still care for them, but at the same time, we care deeply for ourselves and our communities that pursue liberation. It isn't fair for us to sacrifice our own well-being and that of our supportive communities in the mostly futile efforts to deal with hurtful people. That's not an easy task, and there isn't a single clear answer that's right or wrong as to how we can navigate this problem. But we have to figure it out for ourselves with the guidance of Buddha. That is Shinjin. Now I'd like to close my Dharma message by reading the end of the 20th letter of the Matosho written by Shinran. Please join me in Gassho. Oops, I missed a slide. As for becoming friends with those who are given to wrongdoing, it is only after we go to the Pure Land and return to benefit sentient beings that we can become close to and friendly with them. That, however, is not our own design. Only by being saved by Amida's vow can we act as we want. But at this moment, as we are, what can we possibly do? Please consider this carefully. Since the diamond-like mind that aspires for birth is awakened through the Buddha's working, Persons who realize the diamond-like mind will surely not slander the master or be contemptuous of their true teachers. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, 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 namanda. Okay, so that concludes our service for today. I'd like to thank the Buddhist Temple of Marin for all their love and support. And thank you for coming today. I hope you have a nice Sunday and enjoy the rest of your week. I'm going to end the recording and then we can hang out and chat for a few minutes.